Hello, I'm Bay Mud. This is a guitar. There's the MicroFreak and some other things we're going to talk about, but really it's going to be all about triggering that synthesizer via this guitar like this. You may have already seen some recent videos I've done where I've been trying to integrate guitars and synths to varying degrees of success, starting with something like the Modern Sounds Pluto with its audio input and kind of primitive pitch detection. And then my buddy Phil, hi Phil, lent me his Casio MG510 MIDI equipped guitar from the 80s, which was a lot of fun. And that led me here as I finally got a Fishman TriplePlay Express MIDI pickup. I had a special order this in Canada. It was about $300. Bought it with my own money. This is not sponsored. Took a while to get here, and here we are. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. It won't really be a tutorial as I only recently received it and I'm still kind of learning the ropes a little bit. But I was excited with some stuff I made happen with this limited setup. So I thought, let's share it. Speaking of the setup, I should probably walk you through it before I get too carried away in more sound demos. We've already talked about the Fishman TriplePlay Express MIDI pickup. This is my homemade Telecaster, and you can see it's kind of sitting in a weird position. It should be closer to the saddles after the bridge pickup, but one thing they don't tell you when you buy this is I don't think that's actually meant to be mounted on a Telecaster. All of the accompanying hardware or shims, etc., would not fit Telecaster plates. So if you have a Telecaster and you're thinking about getting one of these, just know you'll have to do some finagling to make it work. In my case, it actually works really well right here in front of the bridge pickup. It's only stuck on with double-sided tape, so I can move this around easily if I want to. I may 3D print something to go where it's supposed to be, but for now it performs well enough that I'm probably not going to bother moving it unless it falls off. And then the control panel here, the little 2-button guy, is stuck on via a magnet with the provided strap pin mount here. So all of this is non-destructive. I could take this off my guitar tomorrow and just wipe a bit of tape residue and you'd never know it was ever there, which is great. And then there's a super long USB-C cable that was provided, and I have an adapter to go into USB-A in that CME MIDI USB box that I only got yesterday for a different purpose, but it works really well for what we're doing today, so here it is. And then that converts USB MIDI into regular MIDI into the MicroFreak, which then goes into the Zoom. And for the guitar's dry signal, I will mute the MicroFreak for a second. We've got the dry signal of the guitar going through my Templo device's Nomad 50 amp, which I'll flip the camera around and show you. It's got a touch of reverb on it, and then it goes out the line out of that amp, so I don't have to deal with mics in this case, into this Templo device's pocket comp. Not sponsored. I just like this company. They're cool. They're local to me in Canada, so they make really good stuff. This will compress my guitar signal. You can see the gain reduction so that if I play a little loud, it's not going to kill us. And then it has a balanced output as well, so I can go into the Zoom from there. And then the microphone into the Zoom, into this camera that I'm pointing at with my thumb right now. So that's the setup. So what was going on in that example off the top? Well, this is a preset I made on the MicroFreak called Oscillator Flip, which does exactly what it says in the name. It changes the oscillator depending on where you are in the key bed. So for example, and then when you play that on the guitar, if I mute the guitar first actually, you get a variety of sounds across the fretboard, which is fun, especially when you play the ARP. So you can already see the kind of glitchy fun potential, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do with this setup. I didn't buy this to try to play perfect, trumpet solos via my guitar or trigger anything specifically needing to be well tracked or whatever. I'm more going for kind of ambient layers and textures, being one human man trying to play multiple things at once and make the most noise possible. So that sort of weird glitchy stuff with the ARPs and everything is perfect for me. Flourishes and other things underneath whatever guitar I'm playing at the time. And actually, the thing that got me excited about using the MicroFreak for this purpose was something I had done with it in a prior video, whereby, much like that oscillator flip preset we just looked at, we did sample flipping across the key bed. So each key on the MicroFreak plays a potentially different piano sample or electric piano sample. So here's an example. Now, if you want to learn how to do that, there'll be a link in the description for the video where I walked through that. I thought this would be fun to trigger via guitar. So let's hear what that sounds. The guitar is muted. Interesting. Hopefully you can see kind of, some destructive creative potential, but it gets really fun when you turn the ARP on. So I believe we're on 8th triplets. So let's see. Oh, this is 4th triplets. Okay, it's a little slower. That's good. Roll the guitar back up. And actually, let's dial in some of the delay from the Zoom L6, which I never really use, but in this case, it can apply delay to both guitar and MicroFreak at the same time. And again, that's just kind of the sort of weirdness I'm looking for, and I thought that would be kind of fun. So hopefully you're finding it as fun as I am. There's maybe a more tame example of something I've been interested in trying, which was kind of a plinky ARP underneath some folkier material I've been working on. In that case, that's a song called It's Raining by Patient Whales, which is my folky side project available on Bandcamp. But I didn't have this pickup when I recorded that song, or else I probably would have done something like that to it. So maybe I'll have to revisit it at some point. That said, that's another example where I'm relying heavily on the ARP on the MicroFreak to kind of hide any tracking or latency or playing issues. So let's turn it off and just see how it handles that finger picking. And I'm a bit sloppy, so I'm not playing to the strengths of this pickup, but let's see, I'll drop the guitar down a little bit too, so you hear the pickup come through more. Not too bad. It sounds a bit glitchy, but that's kind of, my playing is a bit sloppy, so it only can work with what it's receiving. It kind of sounds like a bit of auto-tune happening there as it finds the pitch or tries to track, but again, my playing's too sloppy in that scenario. It's finger picking, a bit kind of a lot of multi-notes at the same time, stuff like that. So it's actually performing better than I thought. And that's not necessarily a realistic scenario for my use case. The prior scenario with the ARP on is more what I'm looking for. But it's all a fun experiment. So far, all of the examples I've demonstrated have been using what's called mono mode, whereby each string is sending the same MIDI channel. They're all sending on MIDI channel 1, but you can also enable poly mode, and that would allow each string to send on its own MIDI channel. Word of caution here, to my knowledge, so far with the software that I've used, you can't change those MIDI channels. It's mono is MIDI channel 1, poly is MIDI channels 6 through 1, respectively, but you can't set mono to MIDI channel 8 or poly to 2 through 7 or whatever. In the software that Fishman provides, it seems to be stuck in terms of MIDI channel assignment. You can do something creative with a box like that CME USB MIDI box. They have their own software, and I've been experimenting with kind of merging or filtering the MIDI there, but you can't do anything like that in the Fishman software, to my knowledge. So keep that in mind. So far, really, all I've done with the Fishman software is experiment with changing the button assignments here. You can do things like change the string sensitivity and the bend range, and et cetera, but so far I've just made it so that when I press both of these buttons together, we change from mono to poly mode. So now we're in poly mode, and that means that this new patch we've got here with the MicroFreak will only play on one string, because only the high E is going to be MIDI channel 1. So let's see. There you go. Now the high E is playing a low bass patch, which is kind of fun. But let's change the MicroFreak MIDI channel to channel 6 for this example. And now our low E will play that same patch. And all the others will be clean. Another thing I've done in the Fishman software is change these buttons so that when you press them one at a time, they change octave up or down respectively. So let's go up a couple octaves there so we're not into that grumbly bass territory on this low E. There we go, a little better. And now in this example, you could say accentuate the root note of a bar chord or something with, say, a bass synth like this. So for example, if you're doing something like this. Hopefully you can see where that might come in handy. You could also change the MicroFreak MIDI channel to 5 or 4 or 3 or whatever and be triggering in these middle strings instead. But for this bass patch, I thought it might be more interesting on the low E with the root note of your bar chord. Back to mono mode for a second, as I thought it might be worth using this kind of bass lead patch to demonstrate the tracking if you're just playing regular riffs. Now again, I'm not the greatest clean player, and this requires kind of clean playing to do well, much like any other MIDI pickup that I've tried or I've heard people talk about. But here's an example of a very simple riff played using that same patch we were just using on the low E only. Not bad, and if I'm more careful, you can play quickly as well and do some... It struggles with hammer-ons and pull-offs and slides, but I also think that's me struggling with it, and it's only reacting to what I'm giving it, so let's see how we do here. Actually, I'll roll the guitar volume off so you can hear just the synth signal. Not bad, actually. I mean, it struggles with bends and stuff, but that depends on the settings in the software. I think I have the bend range set maximum, which is like 2 octaves each way. You have to just be clean with your playing. Like if I'm accidentally rubbing my hand all over this, it's going to trigger. Or if I am picking and my nail hits a string I didn't mean, it's going to trigger. And that's just the way it is. You got to be clean with your playing, which is fine. I just have to get better anyway. So there's another example of something that's not an ARP and is a little more traditional maybe. It's a folky thing I'm working on that I haven't recorded yet for Patient Whales, so maybe I'll have time to add this in. I thought that Massage Cats preset worked kind of well underneath. Yeah, it just adds a little bit of that kind of ambient texture. And in my case, I find if you experiment with the attack and release or the mono or poly mode or the sync timing of your ARP, you can massage away a lot of tracking issues or playing issues, I should say. It's really about the sound you're after at the time and the style of playing you're going to be doing with it. So it's a lot of trial and error and not like a one-size-fits-all solution, which is perfect because I don't want that. I want weird and room for growth and kind of interesting opportunities. I'm going to stop there for now. I don't want to go too much further while I'm still learning how to use the Fishman TriplePlay pickup and how to play for it to make it sound as good as it can. Maybe in a little while, if you're interested, I'll do more of a retrospective on what I've learned or any tips and tricks. Maybe talk about why I chose this unit in general over the other options that were available. Spoiler alert, it was the right price in Canada for the features that I wanted. But there's a lot more to talk about in the end. I mean, I mentioned that you can trigger a different MIDI channel on every string. So if you had a multi-timbral synth, say like the Deluge, which is also its own MIDI host, you wouldn't need that box. And you could play a different synth on every string, which would be pretty crazy. But don't worry, this is not becoming a guitar YouTube channel. Baymud is still very synth forward. I just happen to have some guitar leanings I'm trying to combine with the synths so I can recreate the cacophony I hear in my head every day. But what did we learn so far? I mean, it seems like the TriplePlay by Fishman is not meant for Telecasters, but you can kind of make it work. You can't really change the MIDI channels to your own assignments. You're kind of limited there, and you got to play pretty clean, which that was what I expected with this type of thing anyway. Lots more to come. So let me know in the comments if you're interested in that sort of stuff. In the meantime, I'm just going to make some more noise. I've got a patch here that uses the hit grains algorithm and or oscillator, and it's a Mellotron flute sample kind of being chopped up. So thanks for sticking around. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments.